We gon' make some moves tonight, yeah, stand up. Got something to prove tonight, so stand up. We ain't gonna plan tonight, we gonna take action on our dreams and fight, alright. We ain't gonna stall, never stop. We gon' make it all to the top. We ain't gonna plan tonight, we gonna take action on our dreams and fight, alright.
Hey folks, what is going on? My name is Scott Schertzen, and joining me as always is USL reporter Mr. Bill Akins, and welcome to Soccer Sports Writers React. We have a bunch of stuff we're going to be talking about today. Talking about Arsenal, they finally clinched it, so we're going to be talking that. Yeah. We will be talking Maxi Moralez' injury. Is he done with NYCFC? I've got some stories on that. And also, we're going to be talking about what might be one of the most questionable decisions Major League Soccer might be implementing in the near future, and why all the soccer fans worldwide pretty much hate this call. So before we get into all that, Bill, how the heck are you, man?
Doing well, Scott. How are you?
Good. So let's kick this off. I've got to start with this out of the gate. Maxi Moralez. Now, I have had the privilege of knowing Maxi for about 6 years now, ever since the 2021 season when they won the MLS Cup. You know, I have gotten to know his family. My wife, who had told me this morning, I didn't even realize this, you know, she had met his family. You know, she asked questions for him in the press conference about being a leader and a mentor, you know, and being a little bit older, because Maxi at this point is 39 years old. And if you're unaware about this at this point, and I'll play the clip in a second, he suffered what has been referred to as a, quote, serious injury. Now, as of this recording, they have not officially come out with what it actually is. The general consensus is, and the general belief is, it is very possibly an ACL or MCL type injury, in which case at 39 years old, he might be done.
Yeah, I mean, that's a, you know, it looked to me like I saw the video, non-contact knee injury. You know, what was it, like in the 39th minute, I believe?
Yeah, 33, 34.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was in severe pain and, you know, unable to walk. You know, he had to be stretched off the field. You know, and it's you know.
Yeah.
Then
I'll play it right now. There's no audio on this, but at this point they're gonna show actually what ended up happening. I'll come back to it in a second, but you can see the pain and the loss right there. So you can see in the middle of the screen, his foot just seemed to have just planted wrong.
Planted. It's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah. You know, this actually reminds me for New York fans of, you know, when Aaron Rodgers, you know, Pittsburgh Steeler Aaron Rodgers, by the way. When he had his ACL injury 4 plays into his debut season with the New York Jets.
Similar.
Brandon Kay, who, you know, does the Jets, he referred to that as, you know, basically the entire stadium felt like a tomb. But if you sit there and you watch what happened, let me see if I can slow down.
And usually those injuries happen. They're prevalent on turf, and that's why grass. Because grass tends to give more. But you know, you can still. It's still. You're still susceptible to it.
Yeah, and like I said, in this case, you watch. You know, that plant leg right there. You can basically see that he just landed wrong.
Yeah.
And
I know. You know, they're still kind of coming out with reports on it, but you know, it's bad. I mean, what Janssen basically said, hey, it's a serious injury.
That's all they're saying right now, serious injury.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, you know, the diagnostic results. I'm sure they have it already, and they know. I'm guessing it's got to be an ACL or MCL for sure.
That's the belief, yeah.
So.
Now, I was in that press conference afterwards, and all of us were just, you know, what happened? You know, Keaton Parks, who, you know, in this case, longtime midfielder, has, you know, played for NYCFC for a bunch of years and worked and played alongside Maxi as part of that old guard, you know, from back in the day. And his demeanor and Pascal Janssen's demeanor were like, we know what this is, but we can't tell you.
Yeah. And, you know, given his age, I mean, I can see the widespread concern because, you know, that knee injury like that could be career ending.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean,
so now like I said, as of this recording right now, we do not have the official statement on it. However, pretty much every fan has called bullshit on the fact that it's like, we're waiting on final. Pascal Janssen last night said, we're waiting on confirmation. It's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. No, they
You're
know.
not.
And he said it was a serious injury. That's all you really need to know.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, and
it's yeah.
yeah, you and I have done enough press conferences at this point that when
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not that bad, they lead with it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They say we're not too concerned about it. You know, we got more tests coming, but we're not. We think he's gonna be okay. They don't say, oh, yeah, it's a serious injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, last night Keaton Parks was scratched during warmups, and Janssen was very quick to say, and apologies to Keaton on this one. You know, it's like, yeah, he was scratched because of a groin issue. You know, now in this case, he was straight out with it was a groin issue, you know, which probably means he may miss the game against Nashville coming this week. We don't know yet, but it's something where, okay, if you tweak the groin, they led with that. He just like, this is what it was, black and white. He did not say it was, you know, we're waiting on confirmation. So we, all of us know.
Yeah. Well, just the exit alone should tell you.
You know, in a case like this, that go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
You had a little freeze there.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I think, like I said, everybody knows what ends up happening here, and we're waiting on the official report. And I'm glued to basically my email for waiting on the press conference, and probably dropping an F-bomb when I post it in Twitter.
Well, yeah, I mean the exit in itself, he was unable to walk, had to be stretchered off the field. I mean that tells you that tells you it's serious, you know.
Yeah, you know, and like I said, we were up in the press box when that injury happened, and I felt depressed. I did. I mean, I was sitting there. Matt Mangum from New York Soccer Journal was next to me. We were both looking at each other, and we're like, "This might be." We might have just watched the last minutes of his career.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they obviously the press conference was mum. You know, Keaton Parks was mum about what was going on that. You know, and they were doing all the things they're supposed to do.
You know, I mean, and I know the technology today is better than what it was years, you know, even a few years ago with reconstructing them. But you know, hey, you know, there's, I mean, there's guys I remember back in the day that you know tried to come back from those, and they just never the same, and end up retiring. You know, just because they just couldn't take it. But I mean, we'll see. 39 years old. You know, I mean, you mentioned about Aaron Rodgers. He came back from it, but you got to understand he's a quarterback. There's not a total, not a lot of movement. And I mean, there's movement in quarterbacks, but you know, in soccer, it's a completely different. You're on that field, you're moving continuously, you're changing direction. You know, and it could be it could actually end his career.
Yeah.
You're not able to plant. You're not able to pivot. You're not able to, you know, all that stuff you need to do in order to play the game. I mean, you know as well as I do, you have to be able to change direction quickly in soccer, and and not miss a stride. And you know, an ACL injury, you never 100%, and that could hinder you.
You know, and of course, this opens up the question: what does the team do from here? Now, the strange, weird, quirky little benefit of this is the fact that it happened at a period right before World Cup and the transfer window. So there is opportunities for Todd Donovan and Janssen and Brad Sims to come up with a plan to adapt to this.
Right.
You know, the window is here. So ironically enough, they can patch it fairly quickly and not lose a lot of matches as a result. They're obviously Nashville is a totally different thing. And, you know, we'll talk US and what that's probably going to do to Nashville in a minute. But the loss can be patched fairly quickly.
Yeah, and you never want to say, oh, you know, this injury came at the right time. You never want to say that. But in essence, when you look at from the standpoint of the team, it probably couldn't have been a better, you know, situation. I mean, not a better situation, but it couldn't. It happened at a time where you know, if it would have happened after the World Cup, you know, and then that would have been very, you know. But I mean, it happened where you can actually probably patch this up and probably go out there and get somebody through transfer or you know, like I said, it's not. You don't want to say that it happened at the right time, because an injury never happens at the right time. You never should look at it that way. But from the team standpoint, yeah, it's probably the best point that it could have happened for them.
And looking at the fact that Justin Hack is now in LA, Hack could have filled that role a little bit too. And
Yep.
because I mean, in this case, there's a couple of opportunities. You can, take Keaton, move him up. You can keep Justin, maybe move him up. So you've lost a little bit that way. But again, this is going to be a really interesting test for Donovan right now to see what he ends up doing, because he's been quiet.
Right.
As the new GM, he's been pretty quiet so far. And there's been some questions, and obviously Nico Fernandez-Marcao has been phenomenal patching the hole of Alonso Martinez, who will be coming back sometime in the summer. Okay, that'll help. But in this case, this is not just a physical hole to fill, but also a moral one, because he was a very quiet leader. At 5'3", he by the way, we used to call him Wolverine because of the fact he's the same height as Wolverine is.
Yeah.
But he was a very strong presence in that locker room.
Right.
But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But let's go on to something a little more fun, I think, in this case. Fun or opinion-based.
Yeah.
So, not sure if you heard about this one here, but Major League Soccer is considering the possibility of dumping stoppage time. And they're considering the possibility of actually going to a stop clock the same way that the NBA does, the NHL, NFL, and also, to a soccer perspective, college and high school as well, and going to timed breaks. Now, the early response on this outright has been, no, do not do this. This is a no-go, and the comments I've already gotten from Europe, from the footballers, not the soccer fans, were like, this is why Major League Soccer is not popular anywhere, because you're considering ideas like this. I want to get your thoughts before I add a couple of my own, but do you think it's going to happen, and what do you think in general?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, when the league first come in '96, didn't they do this?
They did, for a few years there, and then linked up to the way the rest of the world operates with at a time.
Yeah, because I can remember when they actually had the MLS channel on Pluto.
God,
I can remember watching old matches, and they were stopping the clock. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I just, I mean, I know I could see how the traditionalists are going to be like, oh, this is not how you want to do this. But you know what, Scott? Give me 1 second here. Hold on a second. Hold on.
You pop out. I'll give my own thoughts in the meantime on this one. See, for me personally, if you asked me, say, 5 years ago, I probably would have been in favor of it. But now at this point, I like it the way it is myself personally. And that has nothing to do with Europe or Asia or anything like that. It's more of just the fact that what makes it unique versus the rest of the sports here in the US. I mentioned the NFL, I mentioned the NBA, I mentioned all of these other sports in this case. I personally feel like the loss of what makes soccer, and I'm going to call it soccer in this case, unique, is disrespectful to the sport. And my personal take on this is that fact that it shouldn't be this way. You know what? Maybe I'll hold on this. So,
I apologize. I apologize. I literally saw a huge spider go across the window, and I thought it was on the outside, and then I realized when it crossed over the pane that it was actually on the inside, and it was huge.
And you're sitting there just watching it do one of these.
Yeah, and I didn't want it to be gone. And then I'm like, okay, this thing is in this house now. How do I try to find this thing? So I wanted to take advantage of it and squash this thing. So that's
okay.
What I did.
We got it handled. Okay. I was just saying the fact that my personal take on this is that I'm not a fan of it because it takes away from what makes soccer, and I'm going to call it soccer, unique versus the other sports that are out there. I mean, baseball is unique because it doesn't have a clock.
Right.
And remember George Carlin did a great, thing about that. It's like, we don't know when it's going to stop. It could go to extra innings. Football was originally timed will sometimes even go to sudden death.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, when it come in '96, I remember, they did that was the old school MLS rule. The clock even counted down from 45,
Yes.
um, and stopped doing major pauses in play. I you know I could see how people are saying, "Oh, you're trying to Americanize because all the other, American football has multiple stoppages, and you're trying to Americanize it." I don't know. Like here's the thing that I have. I don't like how you'll sit there, and I think what do they count, like, usually when substitutions happen, they count, like, I think it's 30 seconds they
About
add.
that, yeah, typically.
Yeah. So anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds they add. I just like I've watched, obviously a huge soccer fan, and I watch multiple leagues. I have watched games matches before, and it's like there's not much injuries. There's very little stoppage. Why is there 6 minutes added to the end of the game? Like I
Yeah,
just don't
sometimes we ask
understand.
that question
Yeah,
too.
like who's coming up with that? Who is coming up with 6 minutes? Like some of these matches, you're like they could have added two, they could have added
Mm.
three. Um, I think that they literally just, I don't know if they pull the time out of a hat. Like, hold on, up, it's gonna be 6 minutes. I don't know. I mean, it just, to me, I I don't understand how they get some of these times.
Sure.
I,
Yeah.
I don't. I like this. I actually like this.
You do
And
like it. Okay.
Here's the other thing. You know, I can remember when I was in Europe and watching matches. Like, especially if you're sitting at, I can remember being at a Irish pub in Macedonia and watching a match and saying to myself, "Okay, I'm drinking a ton of Guinness here, and man, it would be nice for me to be able to go take a leak and not have to, and come back and not miss any of the
That's
action."
fair. Okay.
I mean, that was, and that's the beauty about American football, American or hockey.
Sports, really.
Yeah, I
Mostly,
mean,
yeah.
that's the beauty of those pauses. You get to go and get up and take a leak and not miss any of the action. You don't have that
Mm,
in association football, soccer, if you will. You don't have that. You could miss a goal.
sure.
You could literally. I mean, there's been times where I've got up to take a leak, and I come back, and it's 65 minutes into the match, it's a goal, and I missed it. I've been sitting there for 65 minutes, and the one
Yeah.
time I get up to take a leak that takes a minute at most, a goal scored. So
Sure.
I don't know. I'm torn by it. I understand that the traditionalists that want to, oh well, if you want to keep up with Europe and all these other countries, you need to adapt you need to have it the way that they have it. And I don't know. I'm kind of leaning more towards I like it than not. And if you want to call me, whatever you want to call me because of that,
Well,
that's fine.
here's the only question that I've got here, and this is where I don't know. Maybe it'll change your opinion some. I'm not sure. But if they do, basically a countdown clock, are they going to start adding commercial breaks in?
Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, um, yeah, exactly. I mean, think of all the money that Premier League misses out on
Hmm.
with not commercials. I mean, I know they put them in other ways, but I mean, I don't know. That is a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. Now, when I posted this to TikTok yesterday, I'm just gonna scroll just generally straight down, top comments down. One of the reasons I love soccer football is because it's 45 minutes of straight game, then a break, and then another 45. I hate ads with a passion. They'll never take us seriously the way MLS is run. They're definitely doing it for the commercials.
Well, yeah, I think
As a
that
soccer fan, please no.
yeah.
I mean, that's like I said, that's the general consensus has been the fact. Oh yeah, MLS is a joke and just keeps getting worse. That was a good comment there.
Mm.
But no, I mean,
Well, I don't know that it's a joke. It's
Yeah.
it's
I don't
it
care what
is
they do with MLS. It's already very mediocre. That's clearly a European there.
yeah. I mean, it's already a top 10 league in the world. So I mean,
Yeah.
they have made leaps and bounds when it comes to that.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm kind of torn by it. Part of me says no, keep it the traditional way. Part of me says yeah. Here's another example. 2022 World Cup. How many times we have? Their stoppage. They would not even it out with stoppage
Mhm.
time. Like okay, you do 4 minutes at the first half. Don't I can remember one match, very little stoppage. There was 11 minutes added to the end of the game. 11 minutes. That's
You
that's
have to wonder if there was a reason for that behind the scenes.
that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I mean, literally, that is crazy.
Yeah, I that part. I mean, I do see your point on that one. Actually, I do agree with you on that one too.
Yeah.
Where
I
it
mean,
might help eliminate that curiosity quirk, but
yeah. I mean, that's crazy. That's
you know
just
what?
insane.
But we should probably reach out to. I got to reach out to Ted Uncle on a couple things. Maybe I'll include that in the questions on there. So,
Yeah.
but okay,
I
so
was watching
basically,
a match last night, but it was a women's match. It was a CONCACAF match. It was between Pacha was I forget the Mexican team they were playing, but it was a Washington Spirit.
mhm,
But I watched the whole match, and there was no injuries,
mm,
nothing. In the second half. I think there was two substitutions. The second half, 4 minutes added to the
mm.
end of the match. I'm like, where did these 4 minutes come from? You know, I don't know. If
Yeah.
you, I mean, two substitutions. I mean, 30 to 45 seconds. I don't know. That's okay. Round up to 2 minutes. There was no injuries. There was no
Mm.
time wasting. Very little time waste. There was nothing. And I don't know. But
But that's actually a fair point. I will 100% give you that one there too. That it would maybe in some way eliminate something like that in the questionable times because we've been in the box too, and I'm sure you have too,
yeah.
where you're like, why are they doing that much?
Well, USL, I don't know. We tend to not have a lot of stoppage time. I noticed that
Mm.
in the USL they don't really. I mean, you'll have injuries. You have an injury where there's I've counted it. A guy's down for 3 minutes,
Mm.
and head injury. Um, and you don't have a lot added. They I don't know. So they're
But all right. So you at the moment where you and I are divided a little bit, but I can see your perspective a little more. So I'm a little close. I still stand by what I feel on this one. I don't like the idea, but I do understand where you're coming from 100% on that. So
yeah
things to mull.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, they look at it like this. If you add stoppage time, essentially you're turning this into a 100+ minute marathon.
Yeah.
And then you have broadcasting windows too
Mm-hmm.
that you have to, if we know Fox sometimes they'll have like 2 or 3 matches,
Yes, they will.
Eh, so
Paramount
you'll
posted last night for U.S. Open.
right. So you have, that makes the broadcasting windows tough.
Mm.
So I mean and I think that's another thing they're looking at too. These broadcasting windows, a
I
hundred
mean,
plus.
yeah.
They're like, that's,
I don't think it's as bad for Major League Soccer. U.S. Open, sure, because U.S. Open you get that extra, 2:15s there, and that can really screw up your schedule on something like this.
yeah,
But I mean, I think in this case, I think even with the amount of time, regardless, I think either way you got challenges.
right,
But all right, so will remain to be seen. But yes, they did go to the to IFAB on that to talk about the possibility of changing the rules. Obviously, not a this year thing, maybe a this year, next year thing, either
Yeah.
sprint season or the regular 2027 season. I don't know, but so far, like I said, for the most part, the comments are either ambivalent or negative to it for the most part.
yeah.
So, but the Europeans are just like, yeah, this is why we don't respect your league.
Yeah, but I see it. To me, that just doesn't. I don't know. Like that's it. That's why you don't respect it because of.
Oh no,
like,
it's basically they shit on the league because it's not Premier League, which we're going to talk about right in a quick minute,
Yeah.
but because of the fact that it's Premier League and then everything else, and that's what MLS.
Well, you know what?
is.
I can list things that I don't like about their game too. I
Mhm.
mean, I can list annoying things that I don't like either. So, you know,
But but speaking of basically Europe and Premier League, hey, what do you know?
yeah, I
I'm
know
just gonna let
it
you
was
roll on this one, sir.
well, it was great because I was watching that match between Man City and Bournemouth, like a hawk, and I'm like, okay, it's 1-0, and it's late in this match, but still, I'm like, oh, that's still, they've done it before. They did get a goal to equalize it out, but that was very, very late. I mean, they got that goal. I forget what it was. How many?
Mhm.
I think it was 6 minutes stoppage time. They got that in like the 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So I knew that it was pretty much over. I knew that they were not going to be
Cool.
able to score another goal to get that. Um, yeah. I mean, it's hey, it's I'm happy. Haven't seen a title since 2004.
Sure.
I mean, this team has just they deserve this one. And like I said, it sealed it when City failed to win at Bournemouth.
Mhm.
Bournemouth, um, and you beat Burnley 1-0, which you probably should have crushed them. That was another nail biter game where I was like, oh boy, but they were able to beat them 1-0. Um, and they've um, they've played. I mean, defensively this year they've played amazing. They've grinded out, and they've the Burnley match was it was a 1-0 victory. It was a defensive grinding type game, and they've had a bunch of those this year. They've had a bunch of
Mhm.
1-0 victories. Um, Masters of the set pieces. I mean, they just very dangerous in set pieces. The most dangerous team on dead ball situations. I think you know, in the league. I mean, a large portion of their goals come from corners. And I mean, they've had some last couple years where they've been right there and haven't been able to get it done. And finally, they get it done this year, and I'm happy being an Arsenal fan, being a lifelong Arsenal fan, by the way. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that they were able to get this done. Finally, we're back and we got hardware again. It's been a long time, 22 years.
22 years,
So,
yeah. I mean, kids growing up actually became full adults in that time.
right. Yep.
And in this case,
And,
obviously, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, an Arsenal, being able to pull it out the way they did in this case also had some curious repercussions on top of that because now Pep Guardiola is stepping down.
Yeah. Well, good, because I can't stand him. And I just can't stand Man City. I can't stand, they're just, I was a little shocked by that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, where's he go? I mean, there's been people that have been saying he's going back to La Liga. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where. I don't know where he ends up.
I posed that question also, and the general consensus is either, A, he did his bid, B, screw that guy, or C, in general. I did notice some people are like, he's going to take an off year. He's going to take a year trying to decide what he wants to do, reevaluate.
Well,
go ahead.
Here's the other thing. What about these sanctions that are supposed to come down that we've been waiting for years? I mean, they've wrapped up the investigation. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What you claim to be this this you claim to have all this integrity and we're going to hold people accountable. Okay, the investigation's been wrapped up. What's happening here?
Yeah. And that's the other side of it too. It's like this opens up other aspects of this as well, but they'll figure that out.
I mean, it's like a Pete Carroll situation. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a Pete Carroll situation in American football. Yeah, the USC is going to get hit with all this stuff. Oh, let's go take a job with the Seattle Seahawks. So.
Well, the question that I had posed on this is obviously he's extremely sought after. I even had to post something about it from NYCFC because there's some. I think it was Tyler Twellman talked about the fact that he might take the NYCFC job, which I'm just like, no.
Wow.
And the fact that he loves it,
Oh.
it's a sister team. He loves New York. Now, NYCFC fans would be like probably over the moon mostly on this, but they're invested in Pascal Janssen. That would be a bad rep move. And no, I don't think he's bringing himself down to MLS. I think he'll take it off a year and then decide what he wants to do and goes and stay Premier League or at least Europe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he coached, I know, in Bundesliga, I believe.
Yeah.
So he could go back there. I heard some La Liga teams as well that I don't know. I mean, maybe he does, but he's probably maybe he takes a year off, maybe he takes 2 years off. Who knows? Listen, I don't really like the guy, but he is a good coach. There's no doubt about it. He is
6 Premier League titles.
Yeah, he is a good coach. I mean, yeah, I mean, you don't get 6 titles, being a bad coach or being a subpar coach. He's a good coach, no doubt about it.
Now, what's interesting on a personal level for him is he and his wife just got divorced. So, and head coaches, I'm sure you know this pretty much as well as anybody, head coach is your real marriage, and it is extremely draining on an actual marriage itself. Bill Parcells is an example of that, so you have to wonder in this case, I'm just in the back of my own mind, is the step down going to be something to try to salvage things? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially in soccer. I mean, it's especially in the Premier League, very, very short off season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're finishing in May, you're ramping back up camps in June, in the end of June, because you're starting to play. Well, actually, usually beginning of July, but some camps open like end of June, last week of June, because you're playing your preseason games. You're starting them in July. You're kicking the season off in August.
The series is happening in the U.S. in July.
So, I mean, you've got like a month of the off season, literally the month, and you think in that time they're still kind of working. They're still planning. They're still in meetings. I'm sure they're still figuring out. Okay, what we got from this upcoming season. That's when camp opens in a month. They're talking, personnel, they're talking all that stuff. I mean, they don't really have an off season. No. It's a full-time job, where some of these other, leagues in the world, have off seasons, have few months of off seasons where a coach can actually kind of unwind and be away from work. You don't have that in soccer. No, you don't have that at all in soccer.
We both see it. And I think honestly, how long is the off season for USL?
I mean, so you kick off in March, you're done in October. So you have November, December, January, February. They're starting camps because you're usually the first week of March is
almost.
Yeah, the first week of March is the opening for USL. So you're starting camp. Usually camps start in end of January.
Okay.
Camps open up, and you've got 4 preseason matches in the month of February. 4 or 5. Sometimes they'll try to squeeze one in. I know, like they've had some, like last year. They had a preseason match with Pitt. They had a preseason match with WVU. So, yeah, I mean, you're getting a little bit more time off. Now, if the championship, obviously won championship last year, you didn't have a lot of time off. You had part of December, you had January, and actually part of January. Part of December, part of January. You had, so.
But yeah, so I'm curious. I got, like I said, this is just from a relational standpoint, because again, these off seasons, I see in the soccer side on my side, MLS Cup is December. By January, they're back up and running in training camp, and preseason matches in Coachella in February.
Right.
And it's one of the questions I asked Keaton Parks the other day is because he's not part of World Cup. It's like, we talked about, he has more time to spend with his family. With Catherine and the kids and the baby. And he's like, I'm still going to be watching because obviously he has to, he's going to watch World Cup because in a lot of ways it's homework, but he's going to be home.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Well,
probably gonna be nice for his wife to be like, "It's nice to see you around the house more often."
yeah, and he's got to keep in shape too,
Oh yeah,
because we talked about this last show. You know, there's gonna, I think there's gonna be some rusty guys coming back, especially the guys that haven't played. You know, it's gonna be a little rusty. I mean, the guys that have played, yeah, they're gonna be okay. They're gonna be, you know, there may be some fatigue issues. But the guys that haven't played and have been home, you know, we've said it before. Game shape and in being in shape are two different things.
sure.
You know, so
Yeah, and actually, I was thinking about this last night. I was going to probably ask someone in the press conference, whether it was Pascal Janssen, you know, or whatever player tomorrow. I'll find out what the offseason workout routine is, because I'm curious. You know,
Yeah.
this is unique for a lot of these
Right.
players.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're pausing the season, you know, almost
To train for next
midway.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know, you're kind of like, you know, they've got to stay ready, you know,
yeah.
and, you know, the guys that are participating, then, you know, it's like a double-edged sword. You got guys that are participating, fatigue issues. Guys that aren't participating, rust issues.
The
So,
key word though, regardless, is issues.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's going through it. So it's not like it's ideal to, you know,
Either way, it's
everybody's
a different
going,
problem. Yeah.
correct. Everybody's dealing with this. So,
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting for me because, you know, I remember World Cup 2022, but I don't really remember too much what it was like on an MLS level for me. I don't
right.
know why. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on World Cup last time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was in November, and what this, it was around. It was in November, and I think wrapped up in the first week of December,
Yeah.
in Qatar. You know,
But for
so
some reason, I have a complete blank about how that schedule ran, you know, in my head as I'm thinking
yeah,
about it. It's like, I don't remember what happened. Actually, but the fact that they're playing in the summer is also a problem too, because there's been some concerns about heat, because a lot of these
right,
matches are in Houston and, you know,
yeah,
Florida. I mean, you're in Pittsburgh. You're in Pittsburgh. I'm in Jersey. I don't know about you, but we had 97 degrees yesterday, and that was May.
yeah, yeah. No, the other day it was in the 90. It was like it hit 90, and it was humid. No, yesterday here it was crazy. It was hot and humid in the morning, and then it dropped significantly. It
Yeah,
dropped almost 30 degrees. We had very cold temperatures last night. It
we
was
got that. Yeah, the snap just came
yeah,
east to us. So,
yeah. So,
but
but
like I
yeah,
said,
no, I mean, heat is an issue for, you know, it's going to be an issue. I agree, you know, and that's why in 2022 they had it during the winter months in Qatar, because that would have been
yeah,
just, I've
that would
been
have
over
been
there.
even
It's
worse.
hell
Yeah.
on earth. I mean, you're talking 135 degrees at some places in the peak summer months. It's I mean, and there's no humidity, but it's still hot. It's like
Yeah.
being in an oven.
But
And
yeah,
the
I don't know.
breeze blows when you're over in the Middle East desert. The breeze blows. It's not a breeze. It feels like a hot hair dryer blowing in your face. So
You've been over there, or basically you?
yeah, oh yeah. I was
Where
in the
were you stationed,
military.
by the way? Where were you stationed?
Well, I mean, in the military, I was over in Iraq. I was in Kuwait. I was,
Okay,
you know, so you know,
hot
I've been
weather.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like I said. When the breeze blows, it's like a hot hair dryer blowing in your face. It's not a
Mm.
breeze. You don't want the breeze to blow when you're, you know,
Hmm.
in those summer months. So
Interesting. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
thank you for a lot of things across that board there. So,
yeah, yeah.
but all
So
right. So I figure we got one more. I think one more topic, unless you come up with anything else. I figured we'll wrap this up and talk a little bit about the USL right now,
yeah,
because NYCFC last night laid a complete egg. Columbus, you know, Courtois in his first match, you know, as the
right,
interim head coach, the team won 1-0.
right,
NYCFC laid an egg. But what was also interesting as well is that San Jose lost. I
yeah,
wasn't too sure about that one, to be honest.
yeah,
So, you know,
yeah,
so right now this is obviously a September thing, so we're not looking at it for what 4+ months here.
right,
But Columbus, Orlando, Colorado, and St. Louis.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
little disappointed on behalf of Ted Ramey. The fact that San Jose lost, I was, you know, that would have been icing on that cake there for him with the season
right.
going. But
Yeah, yeah. I think what we're looking at is we're looking at what is it, September 15th and 16th, I believe.
Yeah.
You got the Columbus Crew versus Orlando City. You've got Colorado versus St. Louis. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But the problem is, I think to a little bit of a degree here, is the fact that a lot of these teams are not really that exciting.
yeah,
I mean, San Jose, you get on the hype train a little bit there, but Colorado is, I think, at or near the bottom in attendance.
yeah.
Every single match.
Right.
St. Louis is a bit mid there. Like I said,
Yep.
Columbus is going through some challenges. Orlando has had a bad season. So, ironically, for a lot of these teams, it's a good chance for them to get good PR and a chance at a trophy, sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Columbus, with the season they had, I don't think anybody saw them getting to this point, especially
Right.
especially after losing 3-0 to NYCFC a week and a half ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Colorado beating San Jose 2-0. That was a little surprising.
Yeah.
Columbus beating your club 1-0, and then
It was a dud and a half, man.
yeah, and then St. Louis and Houston scoreless, and St. Louis winning on penalty kicks, and Orlando City. I expected them to kind of dismantle Atlanta United. That team is just
Atlanta. Oh my God! I thought last year was a fluke.
and you got Tito back.
Yes.
And I thought this team was going to be very different. We talked about it. We talked about it early in the season, but
Yep.
I'm like, man,
The
they've got him
rebound.
back. Yeah, I'm like, they've got him back. Like, expect this team to be a lot better, and expect them to be, when we look at the standings and around the World Cup, look at them to be, more upwards towards the standings. I was completely wrong. So.
What I'm thinking about doing right now, it just came to me. I'm going to reach out to Chris Duran again. He's the broadcaster for the Columbus Crew. So we've had him on before. So if you don't mind an earlier wake up, like possibly 7 a.m.,
Absolutely. Sure.
we'll get him back on because
Yeah.
in this case, Columbus is obviously in the midst of a lot of changes here. This is a big win for them in a lot of ways. You could tell how excited that team was because whenever you have that coaching change, the players always come out with a fire.
Yeah.
To impress, basically a combination of, I think, both guilt and also, wanting to basically showcase, the new coach. So good.
And you're gonna have that matchup at Columbus against
also
Orlando,
true. Yeah.
which could be, I mean that could, I think that's going to be a good match. I think that's
Sure.
going to be a good match. But so
Columbus in this case versus Orlando. And Colorado, with St. Louis. St. Louis is a bit of a mixed bag there, but Colorado, I don't know. Colorado just finds a way to just be interesting to me, regardless. I mean, it sort of sucks a little bit the fact that the team doesn't get any draw, especially with the fact that the Denver team, the women's team, is now like crushing it over there.
Right, absolutely, yeah. It's a little odd that they I don't know. There's maybe some marketing issues or something there.
Yeah,
but
Colorado's still 11th right now, 3 points out of 9.
Yeah, and they're gonna have that match at Colorado as well.
Yeah,
so
also true. Yeah, but it's I got to reach out. I'm on the mailing list for Denver, and I'm going to work on some stuff, during the break when it comes to Denver and Nick Cushing and bring him back. Hey, NYCFC fans, we're going to be working on bringing Nick Cushing back to basically on the show. Are you happy about that? By the way, I'm doing that deliberately because they kind of hated him even when he did well. So
yeah.
But you know what? I think he's happier overall, and the team is drawing 16,000 fans a game right now.
Yeah,
which is good for NWSL. It really is.
Yeah,
Gotham ain't pulling that, I tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anywho's, that's more or less all I've got, unless you had anything else on your side.
No, I mean we're getting over so close to World Cup here. It's
that I mean,
we're
going to talk about definitely.
We're very close to it. I mean, it's I'm it's right around the corner before you know it. It's going to be here.
So. It's going to be interesting on a lot of different fronts to see how it ends up being. A lot of questions. I mean, U.S. men's national team in this case, how the whole public transit / commercials in general are going to end up being for this, and of course, when it comes down to it, You got Portugal, you got, Brazil, you've got, all the teams that are going to be sort of like towards the end of this thing.
Right.
Yep.
To be honest, it's going to be interesting to see. We'll have a lot to talk about, no doubt about it.
Yeah. But one thing is for certain, I think for the most part, U.S. is just like, hotel sales are down, ticket sales are down, or hotel.
Well, it's a shame because they've really priced the common fan out of the equation.
And that's what I've been hearing for a lot of complaints I've been hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a shame because that's really where you're going to get your rabid fans and excitement. It's I don't know. It's a shame. It's a shame, but the almighty dollar is what they're concerned about. So
indeed, but don't forget, it's still non-for-profit.
Well,
yeah. So are many colleges that make tens of millions of dollars a year. They're considered non-for-profit.
Right. Yeah.
I used to work at one. They made profit. Oh boy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you take that with a grain of salt.
Indeed. But like I said, in this case, a lot of questions on that. I'll be very curious to see what the TV ratings are going to end up being too, because that will be the proof in the U.S. pudding on that one to really see what those numbers are going to be, because there's no lie on that.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I think that there's a pretty big buzz around. I know. I can speak for myself. I have a friend who is a non-soccer fan, and as luck would have it, he works for. He's he does radiology. He's a radiology technician, and he hangs around a doctor a lot, and they talk sports. And this doctor's a big soccer fan, and he's actually going to the match, I believe, in Philly.
Okay.
And I think he's going to another one. But he's a doctor, and he's like, the tickets were like, me and my son are going, and I think we spent like $2,300. And
oof.
He's like,
if you're a doctor, maybe you can afford it.
Right. He's like, that's, we're big soccer fans. So, but my friend's like starting to get into it. He's like, I'm actually going to watch the World Cup.
Nice.
So.
Well, it's been I don't know. I can't speak for your area in PA, but which I can understand why there'd probably be more interest there than here. But here, there is nothing going on. I mean, the sales aren't there for a lot of the merch. Like I said, ticket sales have been soft. A lot of it has been complaints about the public transit system, and now they're bringing in school buses. I told you about that. But generally in here, I mean, right now, World Cup doesn't exist. The Knicks exist.
Yeah.
The Yankees exist. The Mets, okay, kind of a little bit, and then anticipation in the fall for what the Giants are going to do, adding Harbaugh and, basically becoming the Baltimore Giants. But a lot of us are excited by that as well. But right now, this is Knicks country.
Yeah.
Big time, especially after game one. It's Cleveland. So,
yeah. I mean, here, I would say Pittsburgh's a soccer town. I mean, we sell out. We sell out, we sell out with the Riverhounds. I know the Riveters just had their first match, and they sold out that match. So, and I've been hearing that there's going to be a bunch of World Cup watch parties at some of the famous bars downtown. You're starting to see, like, we have a grocery store that's a popular grocery store, Giant Eagle. You're going in there, you see different World Cup memorabilia that they're having, and I go in there weekly to grocery shop, and every week it's like, oh, they're sold out of this, they're sold out of this. So it is kind of a buzz.
Here, they're not selling nothing.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a buzz here with the World Cup. I mean, I think that you're gonna have some watch parties downtown, and it's gonna be pretty. There's gonna be some festive things going on around here.
I think A, being a soccer town, and B, the fact that there's no competing sports over there. I mean, right now, okay, the Pirates, but the Pirates are going to pirate. So yeah, exactly. There's the response right there. I mean, it's like, oh, cool. Metuchen. Yeah. I don't know. Is Metuchen still with that team?
No,
he's gone.
No,
okay.
He's
in
Texas.
He went to Philly for a while. Did he retire?
No, he's in Texas.
He's in Texas now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but like that. In this case, it's the only name in Pittsburgh I can think of. Skeens. Okay, fine, but but there, the Steelers are obviously haven't started yet. The Pens, I think, are done. The Pens are done. Yep. So there's not a lot of competition here. Like I said, you got Yankees, you got Mets, and you got the Knicks, and the Knicks being where they are right now. Yep. I mean, Spike Lee is all over that shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And rightfully so. Yeah, rightfully so. I mean,
dude, every project we ever worked with Spike Lee was great on anytime the Knicks were playing, because we knew we'd be done by 6.
Right.
When he did that, Rob Reiner too, when he was alive.
Yeah.
If the Spurs were playing, we'd be done by 6, and
Right.
that's always good to know when you're going to end the rapid day. But the Knicks right now, my God, especially like I said after what happened with Game 1, this city is blue and orange, big time, and not Met blue and orange. They're laughing at the Mets right now.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, but no, like I said, as a result, the World Cup is just. It's so under the radar.
It's backseat.
I think honestly, right now, the New York Giants and even the Jets are bigger at the moment than World Cup is.
Yeah.
I'll find out. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just the vibe I'm getting in this area.
Yep.
People are just like people are more concerned about what it's going to do for traffic and money because they're going to raise the rates on everything. My bagel sandwich the other day was $7.50. Used to be $4.50 like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway,
we shall see.
Indeed, we'll come back to that one in due course. Any final thoughts though?
No, no. I mean, I think, like I said, we're winding down to this MLS break.
Yeah.
And World Cup's going to be here. Like I said, before you know it. I mean, we're literally what, we're
3 weeks.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks away.
2.5 weeks actually. I think more.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be here before you know it, and so we'll see what we'll have a lot to talk about during that time. And then once MLS picks back up, I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about on, rustiness and fatigue. We'll be focusing a lot on, I'm sure.
That's going to be big. So, and like I said, I want to talk to some of the players this, next coming couple of days to find out what their work schedule or off-season schedule will be. As much as they're willing to tell me, they don't always tell me on stuff like that. But I am
rustiness and fatigue, both ends of the spectrum.
Indeed.
But,
all right, sir. So appreciate it as always.
Yeah.
One more MLS match. NYCFC's got Nashville coming up, so that's going to be a tough match. Nashville's only given up 10 goals this season.
Yeah.
And NYCFC is gassed, as clearly shown by yesterday. So anyway, I'm Scott Schertzen. That is Mr. Bill Akins. Thanks as always for tuning in. Appreciate the time. Stay well.